The abyssal Voyager sliced silently through the inky black, its powerful beams cutting through a veil of darkness to reveal only fleeting hints of an alien world beneath. In the cramped control room, the steady hum of advanced machinery melded with the quiet intensity of anticipation. Dr. Aurora Delgado's eyes shone with a fierce determination as she studied the pulsing data before her, each beep and flicker evoking memories of whispered legends and long-forgotten mysteries. A veteran marine biologist whose heart carried both scientific fervor and the weight of personal loss, Aurora had devoted her life to unearthing the secrets hidden in the ocean's abyss, a realm where myth and reality intertwined. Beside her, Nolan Clark's calloused fingers danced over the console, confirming what his rigorous calculations had already suggested. His pragmatic mind, honed by years of engineering marvels from salvaged wrecks and experimental prototypes, hesitated only briefly at the extraordinary anomaly that now dominated the screen. "This isn't a glitch," he murmured in a tone that balanced wonder with caution, his voice low and measured. His analytical skepticism did little to temper the excitement that stirred within him. Even he could not deny that the signal possessed a strange, almost musical cadence, a rhythm that seemed to resonate with the very pulse of the deep. At the helm was Captain Ethan Stryker, whose steely gaze and unspoken resolve had long earned him the respect of his crew. Trained in the unforgiving traditions of maritime exploration and tempered by experiences that few could recount, he steered the craft with a quiet authority. His mind, ever alert to both the perils and the promises of the unknown, weighed the decision before him with a calculated intensity. The mysterious sonar blips emerging from a dark, uncharted trench were unlike any natural phenomenon he had encountered. They beckoned with an almost hypnotic allure, drawing the vessel toward a destination that promised both peril and revelation. In that charged moment, the central conflict crystallized: to turn back into the safe embrace of known waters, or to risk everything by following a call that could redefine human understanding. Aurora's thoughts flitted between the realms of scientific inquiry and the primordial myths of submerged temples, relics of an ancient civilization where the boundary between divinity and mortal ingenuity had once been blurred. She recalled childhood nights spent poring over tattered books of lore, where stories of gods and monsters lurking beneath the waves sparked both wonder and dread. Now, with modern instruments at her fingertips, she was determined to confront those old fears, even if the cost was her sanity. Nolan, ever the voice of reason, wrestled with his own inner conflict. His life had been one of predictable logic and precise calculation, yet the data before him hinted at phenomena that defied explanation. He questioned whether the anomaly was merely a quirk of nature or evidence of a hidden structure, a relic swallowed by time and sediment. Though his scientific instincts rebelled against any notion of ancient curses or supernatural guardians, a small part of him felt that some mysteries were meant to be unraveled only by embracing the unknown. Captain Stryker's decision was swift and resolute. "We adjust our course," he announced, his tone carrying both the weight of command and the thrill of impending discovery. The vessel's trajectory shifted, guiding them toward the origin of the haunting signals. As the abyssal Voyager inched closer to the source, the water outside transformed into a shifting tableau of shadow and light. Flickers of bioluminescence danced across the hull, illuminating towering silhouettes of rock and silt that hinted at structures both ancient and inexplicable. The atmosphere in the control room grew electric as the crew collectively sensed that they were nearing something extraordinary. Every instrument readout, every subtle vibration against the hull, seemed to be a prelude to an encounter with the unfathomable. Aurora leaned forward, her gaze fixed on the ever-deepening darkness beyond the porthole, where the outlines of a colossal edifice began to emerge. Its features were at once eerily familiar and utterly alien, a remnant of a civilization lost to time, yet imbued with a presence that transcended human comprehension. The data on the screens began to resolve into a pattern, a cadence that echoed like a heartbeat from an ancient being. Nolan's eyes narrowed as he cross-checked the readings, the steady rhythm of the signal merging with the natural cadence of the ocean's depths. It's as though the sea itself is speaking, he observed quietly, his voice a mix of awe and scientific curiosity. Each pulse, each carefully spaced interval of silence and sound, seemed to convey a message from a time when the boundaries of possibility were redrawn by forces beyond mortal ken. For Captain Stryker, the decision to proceed was more than a professional imperative. It was a personal call to confront the legacy of explorers who had vanished into obscurity, leaving behind only whispered myths and unanswered questions. He recalled countless missions that had succumbed to the relentless grip of the ocean, their brave souls swallowed by a vastness that offered no guarantees. Yet here, on the brink of discovery, every instinct told him that this was a moment that would etch itself indelibly into the annals of human exploration. As the abyssal Voyager drew nearer, the mysterious structure loomed larger against the backdrop of the deep. Its weathered facade, marked by intricate carvings and enigmatic symbols, suggested a history steeped in both grandeur and sorrow. The alien edifice, lost to the ravages of time, yet preserved by the cold embrace of the ocean, exuded an aura of silent menace. Each detail of its construction, from the worn stone to the barely discernible hieroglyphs, hinted at a civilization whose secrets were as vast as the sea itself. In the quiet moments that followed, the crew exchanged brief, laden glances, a silent acknowledgement of the gravity of their undertaking. The unspoken bond among them was palpable. Each understood that the choice to follow the call of the deep was both a leap of faith and a confrontation with the most profound mysteries of existence. Aurora's heart beat in rhythm with the pulsing signal. Nolan's mind raced with possibilities, and Captain Stryker's resolve solidified into a single, unwavering purpose. The abyssal Voyager slowed as it hovered at a cautious distance from the looming structure. In that stillness, the vessel became a fragile island of human ambition adrift in an ocean of enigma. Aurora allowed herself a fleeting moment to absorb the enormity of what lay before them. A temple that defied conventional explanation, standing as a silent testament to lost epics and forgotten gods. The reality of their situation was both exhilarating and terrifying. Here was a place where ancient secrets coexisted with modern technology, where every revelation promised to shatter the comfortable confines of known science. As the vessel maintained its position, the crew's collective anticipation gave way to a quiet, determined resolve. The structure, with its imposing presence and inscrutable symbols, had already begun to weave its spell. It beckoned them forward, promising insights that might rewrite the boundaries of human understanding. Even as doubts lingered in the recesses of their minds, the call of the abyss was irresistible, a siren song that stirred the deepest corners of their souls. In that charged interlude, suspended between the certainty of scientific pursuit and the uncertainty of mythic dread, the abyssal Voyager and its crew stood at the threshold of an extraordinary discovery. With hearts both emboldened and wary, they prepared to breach the unknown, aware that the next phase of their journey might forever alter their lives. The ancient call from the depths had been heard, and in its echo lay the promise of truths as profound as they were perilous. The dark silhouette of the lost temple loomed ahead, and as the vessel steadied itself for the descent, the crew silently acknowledged that the mysteries of the deep were only just beginning to reveal themselves. The abyssal Voyager came to a slow, deliberate halt, suspended in the obsidian depths as the ancient edifice emerged from the darkness like a relic of forgotten lore. The colossal structure, half swallowed by silt and draped in layers of bioluminescent marine life, radiated a haunting majesty that transcended human understanding. Its weathered facade bore intricate carvings and symbols that glowed faintly in the vessel's floodlights, a silent testament to a civilization whose secrets had long been buried beneath the crushing weight of the ocean. In that charged moment, every crew member felt the magnetic pull of an enigma that beckoned them closer. Aurora Delgado leaned forward, her eyes wide with a mix of scientific zeal and deep-seated trepidation. Each contour of the temple's crumbling stone seemed to whisper ancient secrets, inviting her to unlock mysteries that had eluded mankind for millennia. She recalled the countless nights spent poring over archaic texts and faded maps, all of which hinted at this very structure, a beacon of lost knowledge that defied the boundaries of time and space. Now, confronted with its looming presence, she felt the stirring of both wonder and foreboding in equal measure. Beside her, Nolan Clark scrutinized the readings on his console with uncharacteristic intensity. The data was irrefutable. The edifice was not a mere natural formation, but a deliberate construction, its symmetry and precision a challenge to the chaos of nature. Nolan's analytical mind raced to piece together the implications of such technology, questioning whether it could have been fashioned by hands far more advanced than any known to modern science. His logical exterior masked a growing inner conflict, as the rational engineer within him struggled to reconcile the temple's inexplicable design with the comforting certainties of empirical data. At the helm, Captain Ethan Stryker maintained a steely composure, his gaze fixed on the ever-expanding outline of the structure. Every instinct honed over decades of navigating treacherous waters whispered that this was no ordinary discovery. It was a confrontation with the unknown. Stryker's face, weathered by countless storms and battles with both nature and fate, betrayed little emotion, yet his eyes revealed a spark of determination. In that moment, he understood that the decision to approach was not solely about the thrill of discovery, but also about confronting the shadowy legacies of past explorers who had dared to challenge the abyss and vanished without a trace. The vessel edged closer, and as the gap narrowed, the temple's bizarre architecture began to reveal itself in startling detail. Massive stone columns, adorned with carvings that defied conventional hieroglyphs, soared into the murky water. Corridors of stone, their passages dark and foreboding, hinted at secret chambers within, a labyrinth designed not merely to confound but perhaps to protect. The atmosphere aboard the abyssal Voyager shifted palpably. Every light, every sensor reading, and every whispered remark from the crew resonated with a collective sense of anticipation and unease. Aurora's voice broke the silence, soft yet resolute, as she observed, "There's an order to these symbols, a language that transcends our understanding. It's as if the temple itself is trying to speak to us." Her words, filled with a scholarly curiosity tempered by an instinctive caution, sent ripples of silent agreement through the control room. Nolan's fingers danced over his console, recalibrating instruments to capture more detailed images of the temple's facade, while Captain Stryker issued succinct commands to ensure the vessel maintained a safe distance from the ancient monolith. A subtle vibration ran through the hull, and a moment later, a faint, rhythmic pulse emanated from the structure. It was neither the sound of mechanical failure nor the natural murmur of shifting water. It was something else entirely, a heartbeat of the deep, reverberating through stone and sea alike. Nolan's analytical mind raced to explain the anomaly, yet even he could not deny the eerie synchronicity of the pulse with the temple's mysterious carvings. The sound was both a warning and an invitation, a call that stirred the dormant parts of every soul on board. In the midst of this surreal encounter, the personal demons of the crew began to resurface. Aurora, whose lifelong quest for truth had cost her dearly, felt the weight of past failures pressing against her resolve. Every discovery was a step toward redemption and understanding. Yet the prospect of uncovering truths that might shatter her carefully constructed beliefs filled her with a disquieting dread. Nolan, too, was caught in an internal battle. The desire to unveil the temple's secrets warred with the instinctive need to retreat to the comfort of logic and safety. Even Captain Stryker, whose command was as unyielding as the ocean itself, seemed to harbor a flicker of doubt as he contemplated the unknown forces that might be waiting within those ancient walls. Without a word, the crew acknowledged that their mission had transcended its original scientific purpose. It was no longer just an expedition into the depths, but a journey into the very heart of mystery and peril. The temple, with its inscrutable symbols and silent heartbeat, represented a nexus where past and future converged, a crucible in which the boundaries of human knowledge were destined to be tested. The air within the vessel was thick with expectation, every moment laden with the possibility of revelation or ruin. As the abyssal voyager positioned itself at the edge of the temple's forecourt, a delicate interplay of light and shadow painted the structure in a spectral glow. Aurora's eyes darted from one enigmatic carving to another, attempting to decode the silent language of stone. Nolan meticulously documented every detail, his fingers trembling with a mixture of scientific excitement and a fear he could not fully articulate. Captain Stryker, ever the sentinel, maintained a vigilant watch, aware that the calm before the storm often conceals the most treacherous of tides. Then, as if stirred by the collective will of the crew, the temple seemed to exhale a low, resonant hum, a sound that rippled through the water and sent shivers along the spine of every on board. The pulse quickened, harmonizing with the distant echoes of an ancient, long-forgotten melody. In that moment, the boundary between the tangible and the supernatural blurred, and each crew member was forced to confront the possibility that they were not merely observers, but participants in a cosmic narrative that spanned eons. A decision loomed before them, a choice between retreating into the safe confines of their vessel or embracing the daunting uncertainty that lay beyond the threshold. Aurora's gaze hardened with resolve as she whispered, "We must enter. There is knowledge here that we cannot ignore, even if it comes at a cost." Nolan's eyes reflected a similar determination, tempered by an unspoken hope that rational inquiry might one day unravel the temple's secrets. And Captain Stryker, his voice low and steady, affirmed their course with a single, resolute command that resonated with the authority of both experience and destiny. With that, the abyssal voyager began its slow advance toward the enigmatic portal, its lights casting trembling beams over the weathered stone. The crew, united by a shared purpose and an unyielding curiosity, prepared to cross the threshold into a realm where every step promised danger and discovery in equal measure. As the vessel edged into the shadow of the temple, the water seemed to pulse with anticipation, and the once distant hum of the structure grew into a powerful chorus that filled the cavernous depths. In the final moments before the descent into the unknown, a profound silence settled over the vessel, a momentary pause in the relentless march of time. It was a silence that spoke of both the gravity of what lay ahead and the indomitable spirit of those who dared to seek the truth. The ancient temple, looming with an almost sentient presence, had not yet revealed all its secrets, and the crew knew that every revelation would come with its own price. Yet as the abyssal voyager drifted toward the dark threshold, there was an unspoken agreement among them to face the mysteries of the deep head-on, no matter the cost. The structure's massive entrance yawned before them like a portal to another world, promising answers that could redefine their understanding of history, science, and the nature of existence itself. In that charged moment, the call of the abyss was irresistible, a siren song that promised both enlightenment and peril. With hearts pounding in unison and minds alight with both fear and anticipation, the crew braced themselves for the descent into a darkness that was as ancient as it was unfathomable. And as the first submersible probe ventured into the silent maw of the temple, it was clear that the true journey had only just begun. The abyssal voyager hovered just outside the immense, darkened threshold of the temple's entrance, the faint rhythm of its pulse reverberating through the crew's bodies like the last drumbeats before an inevitable storm. Aurora Delgado, ever the first to step into the frontier of the unknown, locked eyes with Captain Stryker as the crew gathered their gear. They were on the cusp of something monumental, yet there lingered a tension, palpable and unspeakable, that clung to every inch of the vessel. For the first time, a gnawing doubt tugged at Aurora's confidence. "This is everything we've worked for," Aurora said quietly, her voice heavy with the significance of the moment. Stryker's gaze remained steady as he observed the opening. "Or it's everything we've been warned to stay away from," he said, his words curt, as if he were talking not just about the structure ahead, but about every relic of lost humanity, every myth of gods forgotten beneath crushing tides. Nolan Clark, seated at the console, checked the systems one last time. All systems are go. There's a power surge originating from within the temple, directly ahead. If we want to learn the truth, now's the time. Aurora's restlessness deepened as she finally unstrapped herself from her seat and moved to join Nolan. Her pulse quickened at the sight of the readings, each line flashing faster, more erratically as they approached the temple's maw. A looming dread began to permeate the air. The temple was ready to reveal its secrets, but for what cost? Without another word, Stryker gave the order, his voice carrying the weight of both authority and a profound caution that trickled into the hearts of each crew member. "Proceed." The submersible's engines whined softly as they edged forward into the darkness, the lights piercing the water in stark contrast to the oppressive blackness around them. Each of the crew members, their faces drawn and silent, knew that what they uncovered below would shape the course of their lives forever. But no one knew how the past, this unknown civilization, would reach out to them. The entrance was not simply a portal, but an altar, an immensity that seemed unervingly alive. As the vessel inched forward, the temple's walls began to whisper. The low reverberations of a moth-eaten piece of the past stirred from the ocean's eternal slumber. With each pulse of sound, the water seemed to shift as though the very depths surrounding them were reacting to their presence. Aurora's breath caught as she scanned the symbols that surrounded them. Strange geometric patterns, once bold, now faded yet undeniably profound in their meaning. Lines crossed over one another, forming shapes that twisted and bent with an organic kind of geometry. To a trained mind, these were glyphs with meaning, though what they meant, she couldn't say. "We found something real," Nolan whispered, as if afraid to disturb the sanctity of their discovery. His fingers hovered close to one of the temple's walls where rippling structures caught the light, reflecting as if the stone held something far greater within. Perhaps memories, encoded not in words but in feelings, in sensations that shivered through the fingers like the taunting taste of almost understood truths. But it wasn't just the stonework that demanded attention. Taking the lead, Stryker moved with methodical precision through the sleek, waning corridors, the walls growing tighter as they descended deeper into the heart of the massive structure. And that's when they began to hear it. It started soft, like the murmur of a distant breeze. But more than sound, it was a pressure, a constant, almost gravitational hum that filled the vessel, like the deep thrumming of some ancient machinery long forgotten. Soon, the hum was the only thing they could hear, filling their thoughts and ringing in their ears with increasing intensity. "Something's happening," Aurora said, her voice cold now, drawn thin against a rising panic. "This isn't normal," Nolan agreed, his face growing pale as the vibrations intensified. "The symbols, they're reacting to us." A cautious curiosity replaced their initial resolve, and future decisions would be shaped by the growing dread that the temple was not just inert. It was alive, connected to something far older, far more primal than any of them had expected. As they descended deeper into the bowels of the temple, the air grew thicker. Moving past a stone archway, they crept cautiously into the inner sanctum, where what awaited them seemed even more impossible to comprehend. The overwhelming sense of presence, of something beyond their perception, made their heart's rate increase. Their movements became slower, more deliberate, as they encountered a massive chamber, walls lined with shimmering stone and objects that at first glance seemed like nothing more than relics, but to their heightened senses, these seemed more like placeholders for cerebral encounters already happening. An intricate system of pulleys, levers, and mirrors glimmered beneath the surface of the temple, pointing to some greater mechanism, some hidden need or directive that the temple was aligning itself with, likely more than what their minds could yet grasp. And then they saw them, the figures that materialized from the mist of space and time embodied within the inner hall. Floating translucent images hovered in front of them, not quite solid, not quite translucent, but strange, geometrical, humanoid-like forms frozen in place. The figures stared unblinking, forever unmoving, yet somehow aware. Suddenly, the temple began to pulse more rapidly, as if expecting or calling something. The figures, perhaps unwilling to leave again, stood motionless like sentinels. Time folded, uneasy thoughts of reality and permanence hanging like webs around them as the room began closing in. Aurora stepped closer to one of the translucent beings, her hand inching outward as if to touch the space between them. But she stopped. Perhaps she sensed the danger that now emanated from the temple. Yet a temptation gnawed at her to push further, to break the silence and discover the forbidden. But before she could, Nolan called out, his voice taut with terror. "Get out now." The structure seemed to answer his plea. A low, deep rumble echoed through the chamber, followed by a blast of force, more wave than wind, that launched the crew backward, sending them tumbling through the darkness to the edges of the stone runs. The force seemed incessant, pulling them further within. They huddled, their minds frayed at the edges, pressing against the surrounding walls that became unnervingly smooth, too slick to climb, too smooth to escape. In that moment, the uncomfortable truth gripped them, a shifting wave upon a particle-dependent reality. There was no retreat. The temple demanded their engagement. For 25 seconds, the narrow corridor beyond the entrance unfurled into a vast, dim chamber, its walls alive with ancient glyphs that pulsed softly as if breathing. The ambient glow from the abyssal voyager's lights mingled with an eerie bioluminescence emanating from within the stone itself, casting long, trembling shadows over surfaces worn smooth by the passage of untold epochs. Every step forward resonated with the echo of distant, forgotten chants, a cadence that unsettled as much as it beckoned. Aurora's heart pounded in her ears as she approached one of the towering reliefs carved into the wall. Her gloved fingertips hovered over symbols that defied easy translation, each curve and line whispering secrets of a civilization that had once communed with cosmic forces. In that charged silence, her scientific mind warred with an ancient, almost preternatural intuition. She recalled sleepless nights spent poring over archaic manuscripts and cryptic field notes. Now here, the very essence of those esoteric hints manifested before her eyes. The realization that these carvings might reveal the temple's true purpose, an archive of forbidden, otherworldly knowledge, sent a shiver down her spine. Nearby, Nolan's instruments buzzed with an urgency that belied the calm exterior he maintained. The steady readings of anomalous energy levels and fluctuating magnetic fields challenged every law of physics he'd ever trusted. His eyes darted between the holographic displays and the living mural before him, as if seeking a rational explanation in the irrational language of the past. Every computed value and spectral anomaly deepened his inner conflict. The desire to decode the temple's mysteries was tempered by the unsettling notion that some knowledge might be too dangerous to reclaim. At the forefront of the exploration, Captain Stryker's resolute gaze never wavered. His posture, as unyielding as the steel of the vessel's hull, belied an inner turmoil he refused to acknowledge openly. The seasoned explorer was well aware that the deeper they ventured, the more the temple seemed to reveal its dual nature, both an archive of lost wisdom and a vault of perilous power. While his voice remained firm and measured when issuing orders, a subtle tension coiled behind his eyes, hinting at a legacy of encounters where curiosity had sometimes led to catastrophe. As the trio advanced, the temple's architecture unfurled like the pages of a cryptic manuscript. Corridors twisted and diverged, each turn revealing frescoes and bas-reliefs that chronicled a mythic saga of celestial beings and cosmic cataclysms. One mural, larger and more intricate than the rest, depicted figures cloaked in starlight battling monstrous forms emerging from a swirling void. In that scene, the temple's history converged with an overwhelming force, a primordial entity revered, or perhaps feared, as the harbinger of both creation and destruction. Aurora paused before this mural, her eyes tracing every meticulous detail. In her mind, the images coalesced into a coherent narrative of civilization that had reached beyond the confines of their mortal existence. Yet, as she delved deeper into the symbolism, a disquieting thought took root. The temple was not merely a repository of historical records, but an active participant in an ancient pact with the unknown. The possibility that its secrets might be entwined with a force capable of bending time and space threatened to unravel everything she had ever believed about science and myth. Nolan, too, felt the weight of revelation pressing upon him. His instruments now emitted rapid beeps and irregular spikes that defied his carefully laid expectations. The rational engineer found himself adrift in a sea of uncertainty as the temple's energy signature morphed into patterns that mimicked the irregular rhythm of a heartbeat. It was as though the very stone of the temple had come alive, pulsing with a latent power that defied logical explanation. His mind, trained to dissect and measure, now grappled with phenomena that transcended the empirical, forcing him to confront the possibility that reason alone might not suffice to explain the mysteries before him. Captain Stryker's steady hand guided the crew deeper into the labyrinthine interior. In the low light, the walls seemed to undulate, and the air grew heavy with the scent of ancient salt and decay. Every step further from the relative safety of the vessel amplified the looming presence of the unknown. Stryker's instincts, honed through years of perilous voyages, warned him that they were on the threshold of an encounter that could shatter the fragile equilibrium between man and the cosmos. Yet, driven by duty and an insatiable need to push the boundaries of discovery, he pressed on with unwavering resolve. The turning point came when the trio reached a vast antechamber at the heart of the temple. Dominating the center of this space was an immense, crystalline structure embedded within a dais of stone, a relic that pulsed with an inner light as though it were the beating heart of the edifice. Its surface, marbled with intricate patterns and iridescent fissures, radiated a power that set the hairs on their arms on end. Aurora's eyes shimmered with both awe and trepidation as she recognized in its design a complex interplay of technology and art, a synthesis of the ancient and the inexplicable. In that charged moment, the chamber seemed to vibrate with a symphony of whispers, an ethereal dialogue between past and present. The crystalline relic appeared to respond to their presence, its glow intensifying and casting prismatic reflections on the surrounding walls. Nolan's console emitted a series of rapid, almost frantic alerts as his instruments recorded surges in energy that defied every known parameter. His logical mind, already reeling from the temple's enigmatic architecture, struggled to maintain composure in the face of forces that transcended human understanding. A sudden tremor ran through the chamber, and the relic's pulsations grew erratic, as if provoked by their intrusion. Aurora stepped closer, her voice barely a whisper as she speculated on the nature of this power. A cosmic trigger, perhaps, designed to awaken something slumbering deep within the temple's core. The notion chilled her, for if the relic were indeed a conduit for an ancient, otherworldly force, then its activation might herald consequences far beyond their reckoning. Captain Stryker's command cut through the mounting tension. "Hold steady," he ordered, his tone resolute despite the quaver of uncertainty that laced his words. The crew braced themselves as the vibrations escalated into a resonant hum that filled the chamber with a palpable intensity. In that moment, the central conflict crystallized: to harness this newfound power in the name of discovery, or to retreat and seal away an ancient terror that might be better left undisturbed. The crystalline relic then erupted in a cascade of blinding light, and for a heartbeat the room was bathed in a radiance that defied the darkness outside. In that ephemeral flash, each crew member was confronted by a vision, a kaleidoscope of images that merged the ancient past with a dystopian future. Aurora saw herself standing amid colossal ruins, deciphering texts written in a language of stars and voids, while Nolan witnessed streams of numerical code dissolving into cosmic dust. Even Stryker, the embodiment of resolve, perceived an echo of his own doubts, a reminder that every choice bore the risk of unraveling not only the mysteries of the temple, but the very fabric of reality. As the lights subsided, the chamber fell into a heavy, expectant silence. The relic now pulsed steadily, as if returning to a dormant rhythm, leaving the crew suspended in a fragile balance between awe and apprehension. Aurora's voice, soft but determined, broke the silence. "We have glimpsed a truth that challenges everything we know," she said, her eyes reflecting both wonder and a dawning horror. "This place, it's not just a monument to an ancient civilization. It's a beacon, a warning, perhaps, or an invitation to forces that should never be disturbed." Nolan's measured reply carried the weight of his internal conflict. "Our instruments indicate that the energy levels here are off the charts, beyond any natural phenomenon we've cataloged. We're standing at the crossroads of science and something far older, far more enigmatic." His words, spoken with the precision of a man accustomed to order, now betrayed an undercurrent of unease that he could no longer suppress. Captain Stryker's gaze hardened as he regarded both his crew and the relic that dominated the chamber. "Our duty is to seek the truth," he affirmed, his voice imbued with the authority of countless trials. "But we must also be prepared to confront whatever consequences this truth may bring." In that moment, the decision before them loomed large: to embrace the peril inherent in unlocking the temple's darkest secrets, or to retreat and preserve the fragile boundary between human understanding and cosmic mystery. As they exchanged a final, weighted glance, a silent pact forged in the crucible of discovery and dread, the crew felt the inexorable pull of destiny. With the crystalline relic as their only guide, they edged forward, aware that every step could lead to profound revelation or irreversible catastrophe. The temple's ancient power had been stirred, and its influence now seeped into their hearts and minds, binding them to a fate that was as inscrutable as it was inevitable. In the hushed aftermath of the relic's display, the trio gathered around the pulsing heart of the chamber, each lost in thoughts of what lay ahead. The questions that now confronted them were as vast and unknowable as the ocean itself. Was this force a remnant of a lost epic, a cosmic sentinel guarding secrets too immense for human reckoning? Or was it a harbinger of a doom that had waited eons for the moment of its release? With a deep, collective breath, Aurora reached out to document every nuance of the relic's oscillations, her fingers trembling with both excitement and trepidation. Nolan recalibrated his devices, determined to capture even the subtlest fluctuations in energy, while Captain Stryker maintained his vigilant watch, prepared to lead his crew into the abyss of the unknown. In that suspended instant, the conflict was laid bare. Their unyielding thirst for discovery stood in stark opposition to the ancient forces that had lain dormant for millennia. The chamber, now a silent witness to the convergence of human ambition and primordial power, seemed to pulse with the promise of further revelations. The relic's steady glow beckoned them onward, a reminder that some mysteries, no matter how perilous, must eventually be faced. With hearts fortified by resolve and minds alight with the fire of inquiry, the crew stepped forward together, ready to confront the dark secrets that lay deeper within the temple's labyrinth. In that resolute moment, as the passage beyond the chamber yawned open like a portal to realms unknown, the crew understood that their journey had only just begun. The ancient power, both awe-inspiring and terrifying, had made its presence known. The path ahead promised answers, but at a price yet unimagined, urging them to press onward into the shadowed heart of the temple, where the boundary between salvation and damnation would be irrevocably redrawn. The relic's violent awakening shattered the fragile calm of the chamber, unleashing a torrent of raw, primordial energy that reverberated through every stone and sinew of the ancient temple. A deafening roar of shifting matter and clashing forces filled the space, and the crystalline structure at the heart of the room pulsed erratically, its once steady glow now a chaotic flare of light and shadow. In that tumult, the abyssal Voyager trembled on the edge of oblivion, its hull groaning under the strain of forces that defied all human engineering. Aurora staggered as the surge of energy washed over her, each pulse of light a searing reminder of the forbidden knowledge they had disturbed. In that instant, every lesson learned from sleepless nights poring over ancient texts converged into a single, painful truth. Some secrets are not meant to be unearthed. Her eyes widened with a blend of terror and reluctant understanding as the temple's power revealed itself in violent flashes of cosmic memory. A civilization's legacy, both wondrous and devastating, now laid bare in the raw language of energy and chaos. Beside her, Nolan's instrument screamed in a cacophony of warnings. His rational mind, once unshaken by the marvels of modern science, faltered as readings soared into impossible ranges. The steady, comforting cadence of numerical precision gave way to erratic surges that rendered his calculations meaningless. With trembling fingers, he clutched the console, each beep and flicker now a harbinger of an ancient force far beyond the realm of established physics. In that maelstrom, the engineer's internal conflict deepened. The drive to understand battled against an instinctive dread that whispered some knowledge was too dangerous to grasp. Captain Stryker, the steadfast commander whose voice had once offered clarity amidst the deep's opaque mysteries, now fought to impose order on a situation spiraling beyond control. His eyes, usually as resolute as the stars on a clear night, reflected both determination and the weight of responsibility as he barked commands over the rising tumult. "Hold fast," he roared, his voice resonating with the authority of countless battles against nature's fury. He moved among his crew with a sense of urgent purpose, each step measured even as the very ground beneath them trembled with the temple's wrath. In the midst of the chaos, the true conflict revealed itself, not solely in the cataclysmic force of the awakened relic, but within the hearts of those who dared to challenge the abyss. Aurora felt the searing sting of regret and wonder intermingled. Every discovery had been a step into the unknown, yet now the cost of that knowledge bore down upon her like a relentless tide. Every flash of the relic's wild energy forced her to confront the bitter possibility that her lifelong pursuit of truth might have incited a force beyond mortal reckoning. Nolan's internal battle was equally palpable. The logical framework he had always depended upon shattered before his eyes as the temple's energy warped and danced to an otherworldly rhythm. His voice, when it emerged from the bedlam, was scarcely more than a whisper, an admission that reason, though cherished, might not be the sole arbiter of truth in a universe where the past and future converged in violent bursts of light. In that moment, his determination to measure and catalog was tempered by an undeniable realization. The temple was alive, and it was indifferent to human inquiry. Amid the turbulent surge, Captain Stryker remained the unyielding pillar that anchored the crew to reality. His command was no longer just about navigating physical dangers. It was a call to face the moral and existential implications of their journey. As the chamber shook with the fury of ancient power, he surveyed his crew, each face etched with a mixture of fear, defiance, and reluctant awe. "This storm of ancient wrath is testing us," he declared, his voice a measured blend of resolve and warning. "We must endure, not only to survive, but to understand what we have set in motion." The chamber's cacophony gradually subsided into a heavy, disquieting silence, as if the temple itself was catching its breath. In the lingering hush, the crystalline relic resumed a measured pulse, its lights softening into a tentative rhythm that suggested a reluctant return to dormancy. The immediate terror had abated, yet the weight of what had transpired pressed upon them all. a silent verdict that their transgression had irrevocably altered the balance between human ambition and cosmic indifference. In that fragile calm, Aurora's eyes glistened with unshed tears as she contemplated the cost of their discovery. Every step taken in pursuit of knowledge now carried a dual burden: the promise of insight and the threat of irreversible change. "We've crossed the line," she murmured, her voice barely audible against the stillness. "What we've awakened, it's beyond us, beyond any of us." Nolan's gaze, steadied by a newfound humility, met hers with a mixture of determination and sorrow. "The data, everything we thought we knew, has been rewritten in the language of this ancient force," he replied softly. "Our instruments, our theories, they no longer hold the answers we sought. Instead, they present us with more questions, each more daunting than the last." Captain Stryker's expression was one of solemn resolve as he regarded the trembling forms of his crew. "Our duty has always been to seek the truth," he said, his tone imbued with both the weight of leadership and the bitter lessons of the past. "But we must now choose. Do we retreat and preserve what remains of our sanity? Or do we press on into this abyss, accepting that the path to understanding may demand a sacrifice we are not yet prepared to pay?" In that pivotal moment, a quiet consensus passed between them, a recognition that their journey was far from over. The temple's malevolent energy had not only scarred the physical realm around them, but it also left indelible marks on their spirits. They gathered their resolve like armor, preparing to face a future where every revelation might come at the cost of their very humanity. As the abyssal Voyager steadied itself in the eerie aftermath, the crew moved with a newfound purpose. Aurora methodically resumed her documentation, every note and measurement now laced with the gravity of their near-cataclysmic encounter. Nolan recalibrated his instruments with a cautious optimism, intent on capturing even the subtlest echoes of the temple's enigmatic energy. And Captain Stryker, ever the sentinel, maintained a vigilant watch over both his crew and the shifting corridors of the ancient structure, his mind steeling itself for the inevitable challenges that lay ahead. In the dim light of the chamber, as the relic's soft pulse illuminated time-worn hieroglyphs and faded murals, a solemn truth emerged. The boundaries between science and myth, between past and future, had been irrevocably blurred. The temple, with its ancient power now stirred, was not a silent monument of lost eras. It was a living repository of cosmic secrets, a force that could reshape destiny itself. Standing at the threshold of a new, uncertain chapter, the crew exchanged a final, weighted glance, a silent pact forged in the crucible of disaster and revelation. "We have survived this tempest," Captain Stryker intoned, his voice echoing off the stone walls. "But the real journey begins now. We must confront what we have unleashed, not only to understand it, but to decide whether we have the strength to control it, or if it will control us." As the vessel's lights flickered against the backdrop of the deep, the lingering radiance of the relic served as both a beacon of hope and a harbinger of further peril. The ancient force, though momentarily subdued, continued to hum with a subtle, insistent cadence, a reminder that the secrets of the temple were far from fully unveiled. Each pulse was a promise of deeper mysteries yet to be deciphered, a siren call that beckoned them back into the labyrinth of the unknown. With heavy hearts and unyielding resolve, Aurora, Nolan, and Captain Stryker prepared to navigate the uncertain waters ahead. The aftermath of the relic's fury had forged within them a shared determination to seek the truth, no matter the cost. In that charged moment, as the abyssal Voyager steadied itself to leave the turbulent chamber behind, it was clear that the echoes of the temple's ancient power would continue to shape their fate. The journey into the heart of darkness had only just begun, and every step forward promised to unveil new terrors and untold wonders in equal measure.